Right, good afternoon ladies and gentlemen. This afternoon it's the 5th of September 2002, and today we've got Don Rouse and Freda Bradley who wrote her book recently on Bampton, and Don, who is a well-known character around Bampton. He's got quite a number of anecdotes, and this afternoon the two of them are just going to talk to one another and reminisce over their memories in Bampton. Don, Freda.
Lovely. Well, I'm not a Bamptonian by birth at all. I come from the West Country, whereas Freda, of course, was actually born and bred in Bampton. But Freda's a little bit older than me, not a lot, because I relate more to her brother Dick.
Yes.
Him and I were at school together, but we happen to share the same schoolmistress, Miss Farmer. So, what's your earliest memories of Miss Farmer?
Of Miss Farmer, my earliest memories was going into her classroom, and a big open fireplace, and an iron guard round it, and
I remember that.
You remember that, do you, Dawn?
Yeah.
And she was tall with very black hair, and it was what they called the bob, straight bob, and that's how I remember Miss Farmer. And I was 5 when I started school.
When you go looking around these schools today and you see these absolute gorgeous bits of crumpet that are the teachers, think, blimey, didn't we miss out? Because Miss Farmer seemed straight-laced, with her hair bobbed and whatever, but probably to older people like Roy Barrett, she was probably an absolute gem. But
she's still quite tall, even to this day, and she's now 95.
I visited her in hospital this week.
Did you really?
Yes. She's had an operation on her hip, but her brain is absolutely switched on perfect. And when you think about it, I know it's the same with you. What do you call her?
I call her Miss Farmer.
And so do I.
But in the hospital...
I'm 65, how old are you?
I'm 75.
I went in there and I said, can I see Miss Farmer? And they said, certainly. Mary, says this young girl of about 18, you've got visitors. I said, she's not Mary, she's Miss Farmer.
And I couldn't call her Mary because when 3 months ago I broke my wrist, as you know, and of course then when it was getting better I had to go for physio at the Whitney Hospital, and she was going as well for physio, and so they all called her Mary, the ambulance drivers, the attendants, the nurses, or whatever, but I just could not call her anything else but Miss Farmer.
It's offensive, isn't it, to us?
It is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I wonder, when we had the pot-bellied stove in the middle of the classroom with the guards round it.
Yeah.
I think that's probably where the word central heating came from.
Oh, yes.
It was in the middle of the room, because how can you call central heating with radiators round the sides?
No.
It was always a coke burning stove, wasn't it?
Yes,
Stuck right in the middle, and it used to get ever so hot.
And then it was the old caretaker then.
Snuffy Jack.
Snuffy Jack, and he used to come in the middle of the class, in the middle of a lesson, and stoke up with this coke.
Yeah.
I mean, people nowadays won't even know what coke is, because I remember when I was writing the book, I thought, well, they won't know what coke is, because how can you tell what kids coke is drinks?
Can I interrupt here? Who was Snuffy Jack? What was his name?
We're glad you asked that, actually. Snuffy. In Bampton in the old days, you get lots of people who were great characters, and they did lots of jobs. Horace Morse, he was in charge of Bampton's town hall when we used to have silent films at the top there, and he would be in charge, and he had a funny little voice, didn't he? He was very strict, and he was very important, and yet at the same time he was the man who went round the horse and cart collecting the ashes, and also collecting what's politely known as the night soil. But he was a very important person.
Oh yeah.
Snuffy Jack, he was caretaker at the school, but he was also one of the bell ringers. I think he probably was the tower keeper in the 1930s.
Yeah.
Because Jack Joyce.
I think he was.
Jack Joyce took over from Snuffy Jack.
Yes.
And so Snuffy would ring the curfew, because Bampton had a curfew in those up to the 1960s.
The bed bell.
The bed bell at 8 o'clock at night. That bell would be rung, and if you were living up New Road, the kids would come out of the woodwork and go on the way home. Total control just by the sound of the tolling of the bell.
Oh, didn't it toll? Tong.
Yeah, that's right.
What was his surname? That's nothing.
Tanner.
Tanner. One of the Tanners.
One of the Tanners. Right. But you know, lots of people went with their nicknames. They were given nicknames.
That's right.
You know, appropriate to what they did or something. Because my father's nickname was Thursday, and it went down to my brother, my eldest brother. It went down.
What, to
to Thursday. But you know what that was? That was because my dad couldn't say Thursday. He could just say Thursday.
So
yeah, in the
Thursday
Bampton.
Daniels then.
So it was Thursday Daniels, yeah. or dark. He was called dark because he was a very dark skinned man. Very dark hair and very dark skin.
I remember him.
Yeah.
Well,
But yes.
Talking about the bell tolling at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Somebody had told me on one occasion they went round. The children used to go round with him and see the bell and hear the bell ring. Were you one of those children?
I was a bell ringer from the age of about 10 or 11, because Father was then the captain of the bell ringers, and he had all of our family ringing the church bells.
Terry still does, didn't he?
I can't remember whether Sister Valerie did. But Dad certainly had us all going up the belfry and ringing the church bells. But Jack Joyce took on from Snuffy Jack the responsibility of doing the curfew bell at 8 o'clock, the bedtime bell. And a person who used to go up with him a lot, like you're saying, Roy, was Barry Taylor. Mm. And so Barry Taylor became bell ringer because Graham Taylor was a bell ringer, his older brother, who Dad taught Graham, Dad taught Barry. And so Barry would accompany Jack Joyce, and on many occasions if Jack couldn't do it, if Jack was bored or so, then Barry Taylor would do it. It's bell number 5.
Yeah.
That's what it was always used.
Yeah.
He was more worn out than any of them.
And then you see there was a big man, Bill White. He did it for a long time.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
I've lived to be 75 and I have never been up the belfry.
Well, I never really.
I have never been up the belfry.
Well, that's got to be arranged, Freda.
I would like to go, Don, yes, I would.
Because me and your Dick, in the days of Kelway, when Kelway was the vicar, we had to clear out all the birds, the pigeons, brought in loads and loads of twigs. It was hundredweights of it. And Dick and I, Dad employed us both, of course.
Yeah, I think I remember you doing that.
We had to go up there and bag all this stuff up and put it up from down underneath the bells, put it up on the top of the rafters, carry it down, drop it down one flight into the clock chamber, because you've got the church underneath, and then as you go up the steep, I think it's like 37 steps or so, is the first chamber, which is the bell ringing chamber where the ropes are. Then you go up another flight of steps, is the clock chamber where the chimes and the clock is, and you see the old clock ticking away. I would imagine it's still, I know it's electrically wound. But in that particular chamber is some little lattice doors that open, and you can go out onto the roof on the south side. So we would go up the next step, which is where the bells are actually hung, bag up all of the stuff, take it up and down, chuck it down first into the clock chamber, out onto the roof, and then sling it down onto the floor, onto the ground. From then on, we got tractor and trailer and haul away and burn it. And after that, Dick and I your brother had to get some very fine wire mesh and staple up all the lattice work to stop the pigeons going in and doing it again. And that's got to have been 50 years ago.
It must be, yeah.
I remember
bags and bags of it.
I remember when they were doing the repairs to the towers a few years ago. There was a chap up there not doing it from the inside, but going through the slats.
Yeah.
And he was chucking out handsful of sticks and all sorts of things, a great big pile.
Bags and bags. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Dick and I learnt the hard way. We were working, then 12:30 was our so-say knocking off time. And we were working away up there. I think we'd gone up there about 11:10 or so. We were really engrossed in our work. And we're down underneath number 8 bell, which is the one that strikes the tenor bell, which is the one that strikes the hour. Bang, and we were underneath them. Within about 1 second flat, we was up and down the ladder before it went bang again to strike midday. Unbelievable.
But your dad was a great churchman, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, a great churchman. But and I always remember, because when Dick left school,
employment with Dad was you went to church.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Feudal times.
Well, my brother Dick, you know, he when he started work, he went to work for Mr. Rouse, and he always had to be around on a Saturday to get his wages, because if he didn't pay out on Saturday, he wouldn't pay on a Sunday.
Absolutely.
He would not pay the wages on a Sunday, would he?
Yeah. He would not pay out on a Sunday.
He wouldn't have any.
He would have no business dealings at all on a Sunday. He would not talk business on a Sunday. He certainly wouldn't. You see, Bampton in those days, a chap named Len Hughes operated some coaches, and Farringdon Cinema opened on a Sunday, which was absolutely disgusting to my father. And they had pictures. So Len Hughes would take busload of all the young kids and that to Farringdon, pictures on a Sunday, and we were absolutely banned. I don't know way. But if Dick went to it, and Dick wasn't really turned on at his work on Monday morning, he said, that's what comes of going to pictures of a Sunday night, you shouldn't do it. Yeah. But what I can never, Dad was a contradiction really, because he banned us, etc., yet when televisions came out in about sort of 1950s, you know, with the first few televisions around, he would watch that, you know, and the Tiller girls doing their dancing, you know, disgusting, never ought to be allowed, he said.
No, disgusting.
But he couldn't get his eyes off him. Yeah, I remember your Dick working for us, and certainly when as kids was young, a thing we used to do was birds nesting, and Dick was very, very keen on that, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I believe, and because my boys were well, and my Trevor was very interested in the birds nesting, and I know he's got them now, but I mean, it's illegal to have them. Well, what would they do with them if they cut them off you? They'd fine you.
Yeah,
but, I mean, but you can't go and say, "Well, I've got birds' eggs."
That's right. Last night on television, somebody. I mean, I don't know how he came by them, because I know that when we were kids, you would go round birds nesting, and you would only take one. You'd only take one egg, and you'd take it home, and you would blow the egg, pinprick either end, and blow the egg, and you put it in cotton wool, and you would list it, etc., etc., etc. And all the young kids did it, and there was no depletion of sparrow numbers or swallow numbers, anything like that.
Oh no.
But I do accept that some people now set traps to bait birds and all that sort of thing, and that is wrong. But to us, it's part of nature, Freda.
We used to look for them, and then used to where you'd go up to the nest, you'd see where everybody, there's a nest there because everybody's been into it, sort of thing, and feeling, and they say, and then we used to say, oh, they shit and flown.
Or the skinnies, you know.
And the skinnies, Well, I had to, when I was writing my book, I put in there, and somebody was editing it for me, and they had to ask me what skinnies were. So if you read my book, you'll see I've put skinnies, but I've put the young birds, you know.
Yes. The other thing that's changed over the years since your day are the garlands. I mean, the kids aren't allowed to buy and to pick flowers now. You see most of the garlands are cow pasty and with one or two colours in amongst.
That's a shame.
Well, do you know that, but Roy, there aren't the amount of flowers about at all really now, is there? The best place to see them is along the middle of roads, isn't it? Where
there will be, because there's legislation out now. If you read the Bampton Beam this time, what I wrote in there, that my brother, who's still staying in farming, I've got out, thank God, but my brother's still staying in farming. Farmers are now becoming park keepers, and the sort of thing you're not allowed to, and I will admit it was a bit tragic. Intensive farming, you would get 3 crops of grass out of one field in a year with no trouble at all. But if you go back to when you and I were kids, you'd be lucky to get 2 crops. So the mower would go out in June possibly, by which time all the partridges would have had their babies and their babies would be running with them. But modern agriculture, when it was intensified, you started mowing by May the 10th. And all the eggs and that were just being laid. So this mower going along 8, 9, 10 miles an hour, cutting 3 yards wide in one stroke, did a lot of damage. And so I can see the sense of this business now, but to become a park keeper and to get money from the government, they must not cut certain areas until July, which of course will allow flowers to flower and go to seed, and the birds to have their babies and go. And now my brother to plant new grass, which would only cost him about £65 a hectare to plant new grass, he has to buy wildflower seeds costing 300 and something pounds a hectare to plant. And these are the flowers that you and I as kids would have pulled up, and the farmer would have loved you to have pulled them
Well,
up.
for years now, Don, you've never seen a hayfield, have you?
No. Not as we know it.
Not as we know the hayfield. You see the hayfield. And we used to play in the hayfields because you could be down in that.
It was your varmint, was it?
Yeah, but that's true, though, isn't it? You know, you'd see this hayfield, and you'd get to the middle of the field as you could. You know, you got yours. You know,
well, that's right. And the hay would be cut, and the farmer would take his time turning and tutting it.
Yeah.
And I remember where the school is now, when we had those fields, the weather was a bit worried about it's going to rain, sort of thing, a bit worried about it, and we would make it into what they call summer cocks. Round about something would be about 12 foot in diameter across the bottom, going to about 8 foot tall, and you would do that by hand.
Yeah.
By hand, and then that would protect itself from the rain, because the way it was designed was a bit like thatch, if you like. And then, of course, all you New Road kids would go and play round when that upset my father.
You make New Road sound common, and it's not common.
I lived there, I know. I was at 33 New Road.
Oh yeah, that's them lot from up New Road. And anything happens, that's them lot from up New Road.
Absolutely. So New Road was lovely. New Road was established where Freda lives. What's that, 1930s, Freda?
Where I live now, Don?
Where you lived with your mum.
Where I live with, where
you used to have that posh
1930.
bath on the outside of the house.
Yeah.
When you bought a new bath, you put it on the outside, a galvanised bath.
Oh yeah, show off the bath.
The Daniels have got a new bath. They must have come into some money, you know.
I had a bath down. I even had a bath hanging. And when I first got married, I went down.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we lived down. Well, they called it Mill Green. No, they still call it Mill Green. You know, where you go in this heck of a big house now, you know, from Dora's, you know, and we lived in there, you see. I mean, my daughter was born from there, my eldest son was born in there, but we had them hanging on the outside. There was only a front to those cottages, there was no back to it, so the bath's not hung by the side of the front door.
Yeah. Lovely, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But hey, tell me, this is the thing. I was having an argument with somebody the other day. I think it was with my wife, actually. When was your bath night? Ours was Saturday night. When was yours?
Yeah, ours was usually Saturday night.
Well, that's what I thought. She must be posh. Well, she's from Whitney.
Oh, did she have it on a Friday
she's
night?
from Whitney, so she used to have baths on a Sunday.
Oh, did she?
I always had them on a
Saturday, yeah.
Three of us kids in the bath together.
I remember.
Terry, Donald and Valerie.
Yeah, remember I was beginning to grow up a little bit, because we had the old scullery, we used to call it the scullery. Well, it was the scullery with the copper, the stone copper, and the water was hotted in that, you see, with the fire underneath. I mean, it was nice and warm to have a bath, wasn't it, Don?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because you'd have the fire.
Straight from the copper, yeah.
Straight from the copper, you see, with this tin bath, you see. I remember my dad coming through the door, and I suppose I was be about 12, 13, just beginning to sort of grow up. And he said I've seen it all before.
Yes, well, the funny thing was that Ken, her eldest brother, on the next one down, we called him Titchy.
Yeah,
Jim.
Titchy, yeah,
He was called Titchy Daniels.
Titchy, yeah. What, did you or the little one?
I remember Titchy and Ken were talking about their sister growing up and when would she have some boobs? And Titchy said to Ken, I wonder which one would come first.
Oh dear.
But all the way up New Road. Anyway, as I was saying, what we now call Bushy Road was New Road still.
Was still,
and then farther on from Freda, if you go down Bushy Road, then it was New Inn Lane.
Yeah, Dumpfield.
Dumpfield off and then New Inn Lane.
Did you read the Beam, that letter from Jack Morton in there?
I did read the Beam, and I'm answering that, and I might tell you the story of how I've answered that in a moment. But yeah, so you had this established part of New Road. So when was that, Freda? When was your house built?
Those houses were built in 1930, Don.
Right.
I was 3. We went up in. I was born in 1927.
Right. Yeah, so 1930 then.
Yeah.
And so that went up what is now called Bushy Road, but we knew it as New Road, and it was all on that side of the road, all the houses, they went along, and then up to where the Batses and that lived. Were they added later?
They were added later, yeah. The first houses were those 12, yeah. And it started, number 1 was in New Road.
Which was Barbara Green's.
Yeah, that's right, Harry Green's, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they came round, and we were number 11, we were.
That's right. Well, then after that, I was that before, that was before the war, the next stop where Batses and where Bill Daniels lived, that was another batch, and that went down round Fox Close.
Yeah, Fox Close was being built during the war.
But it was still New Road, wasn't it?
They called it New Road. Yeah. It wasn't given Fox Close the name of Fox Close.
No, it's still New Road.
Yeah, but that was during the war. It was just as the war was starting. That came there, and those two, what they called the big house. There was a 4-bedroomed house, and it stood on the crossways, didn't like that.
Wheelers and Mrs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Lived,
Well, the soldiers had that signals.
That's right.
And then that chappie that writes in the Beam, the American soldier, he said he was in there when they first came to Bampton or something.
That's right.
He was there. But, he, that's how the signals came about before they were there, before they went down to...
the signal camp.
Signal camp.
Oh.
So that was 1939, because the signal camp was from 1939 to...
That's right. But the actual camp wasn't up and running to 1942, I think. It was just before we got there. And yet it was still a dirt track supplying it. Yeah. Because it was the Yanks that built it, all the underground cables and that were laid from the different areas was all done by American labour.
But that was after America came into the war, obviously.
I remember seeing the Americans being there in 1943 when we came there. Yeah. But it was still a dirt track.
So that's the connection with this stick. What is his name? Can't think now.
This American
chap.
Yeah.
And then also I'll tell you something else he talks about in there, because he wrote me a long letter and he told me all these things in the letter, because he'd had my book and what have you. But he talks about Bessie. And in his last thing I read it, and it said about Bessie being a shy girl.
Well, Bessie Brooks.
No, this was Bessie. She was the old housekeeper for Bateman.
Oh yeah.
And she was very old, wore long clothes and very old.
Right, yeah.
So it wasn't Bessie he was talking about. He was talking about Hilda Buckingham.
Was she really?
And she said herself. She said that's me he was talking about. I mean, she would have been shy, but she left to go to Smith's, munitions.
Munitions at
wherever, it was Javelins, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
Yeah, she because I went into service, you see, and then came out and went, into factory.
Yeah, so going on up New Road. Then in 1948, May 1948, we actually moved from Wheeled Farm cottages up to New Road, and into those new houses then, because you had that's when Fox Close came about. Because you had Addison's, the Browns, or Bill Brown, and Addison's, and Vera Elwood, the Johns,
Yeah.
and old Tom Beresford, the scoutmaster.
That's right, yeah.
And Mrs. Mackenzie, the nurse.
Yes, yeah.
That then completed New Road. So
Mackenzie's lived in one of the top ones. They weren't quite finished because we used to play in those top ones along where Bill Dew and Mackenzie's lived.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, then
It was
the others
in the corner there.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
That's it. Well, they so you had this situation where you had a new load of houses come up New Road, right, and you still had your established houses. And so when us boys came to that part of New Road, and we would go down playing with the established families, we were the new ones, and I used to have the hots for Dinah Dafter because she was my age, see. and
so Dick Sprendy, shoot, they never did anything. Always did everything together. Dinah Dafter and Dick.
Barbara Green, Pam Preston, the whole lot of us. We used to play. But once the church bell tolled it's 8 o'clock, we went home. But sometimes old Nan Dafter, Dinah's mum, she'd come out and my God would she go on at us kids. You bloody races, you get up your own end. You know, we were the bad lot that moved into New Road. You know, we weren't established people of New Road, we were the bad lot.
Yeah.
It's Dinah Green, Dinah Dafter.
Dinah Dafter.
Yeah.
And she's dead now. She
was. Did you remember just after the postman?
Yep.
Well, that was his daughter.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
She married Barry Taylor.
Yeah.
And because Barry Taylor lived up New Road as well, so he was at Bar End, he was another one, you see.
It was a breeding ground in
Well, what it was.
That's where the Vandals were.
You see, it's where the slums, at New Road, a lot of the slums came, we used to call them, the slums.
Thank you, darling. I love you too.
Well, you went down to the slums, you left
I
New
left
Road.
the slums and went up New Road. Well, it was up market for me.
I mean, a lot of those kids down Weald, they hadn't got shoes to go to school in.
Well, I hadn't. But I'll tell you, one of the beauties of about the era that we're talking about is the safety of which kids could play in. I had my little group of friends right down Weald Cottages there, and there was a woodland area known as the Fox Cover, which was down nearly into Clanfield. I expect probably was in the parish of Clanfield, and that was our playground. But Freda and her gang had the plantation up here, and where plantation cottages were, and that was their playground. But us kids would go out in the morning, and our mums would give us some sandwiches or whatever, or you'd just have an apple.
Yeah.
And off you go, and you go there all day.
You wouldn't think of
boys and girls playing together, building cabins,
dams,
bird nesting, building dams.
Yeah.
There were snakes, grass snakes up Fox Cover in the stream.
Yeah.
And we'd have a whale of a time. Totally, it wasn't the parents. Well, I suppose the parents wanted us out from underneath their feet.
Yeah.
But total confidence that no harm would. I mean, we'd fall out of a tree, and I remember your Dick sticking a blinking stick right in his leg once.
Yeah.
We would have those sort of accidents, and it made us aware of dangers. But we were allowed to grow up. We were allowed to mix.
Yes.
Totally different world.
No, it's 999 and they're on their way to the...
That's right. But the kids don't get... You see, my own personal feeling is that kids, the parents are so frightened of the children, they take them to school in a car, so the children do not get a chance to feel what they can do, to feel confident in the outside world. They're not getting streetwise because they're taken from A to B in a car.
Yeah.
When we was kids, right down Weald, I mean, you're probably talking 1.5, 2 mile walk.
Yeah.
And we would do it.
And you'd learn on the way.
Birds nesting, climbing trees.
They don't know the difference of the names of flowers.
That's right.
They don't know the names of anything nowadays, do they? I tell you what I said to my kids, I had my grandchildren one day, and our mum used to always say to us, we're going out somewhere, have you been to the lavatory? You didn't get took out unless you'd been to the lavatory because you didn't want to go when you got out somewhere.
That's right.
And so of course that was always have you been to the lavatory? Well, I was getting there, and I'd got them with me, and I thought, I'd take them for a walk, and I got them to get to look, and I said, have you been to the lavatory? Huh? Looking at me as if I said, yeah, but they didn't even, they'd never even heard of the word lavatory.
That's right. That's right.
There's so many words that
They've gone.
that have gone. You know, things that have gone.
This business of going way away. I mean, I lived in the suburbs of London really when I was that sort of age, and I used to walk to school every morning. It was about a mile and a half. Come home for lunch, walk a mile and a half, go back to school after lunch, and do it 4 times, the same journey 4 times a day.
Yeah.
Nobody used to worry. Down along the main road, everything.
Yeah.
Well, look where you had to walk
Essence
from where
we've
you.
lost,
That's right.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is the
Terrible
innocence,
shame.
Yeah.
Terrible shame, because it allows you to grow up.
It does. It you learn things.
Yeah.
What I say now, they don't seem to have any common sense.
That's right. That's right.
They're
because
very
we learn
clever.
that way. Yeah.
They're very clever up there, you know, as regards
Oh yeah, put them in front of a computer screen.
something like that. Yeah,
They're well
but they got
away.
no common sense.
That's a lovely story. A friend of mine, he went to a party, and this father of a teenage son had sort of cornered him, and he was talking about how clever his son was at computers. His teenage son couldn't do on a computer with no business. And he'd gone on for about 15 minutes, and my friend was just getting fed up with it. My friend looked him straight in the eye and he said, but Tom, he said, can he skin a rabbit? and I stopped him dead. Because if everything went if the bomb was to drop and you had to start again, how many people could survive? How many people would know how to catch a rabbit?
Yeah.
Now, let me skin it and cook it to survive. I was talking to Bampton's doctor the other day, Nick Ward, and because he's of the younger generation, and this younger generation, if they have a chicken for dinner, they would eat the meat off the chicken and throw it away. That would be it. Whereas your generation and my generation, Freda, we would have it cold the next day, we would stew it the next day, you would have all sorts. That chicken would last a very long time. But another thing that Nick couldn't do is kill anything. If he had chicken in his garden, there is no way on earth that he would kill it, pluck it, clean it, and have it on his table.
I mean, I think of that these days, but when you've got all these so-called, animal lovers and what have you, we used to grow the cockerels for Christmas.
Yeah.
You would have the cockerels in the pen, you'd have the pig to use.
Yeah.
I mean, and you treat them...
You had to wring their neck, didn't you? It brought a whole new meaning up. If I catch you, I'll wring your neck.
Yeah.
A kid knew that was it. He was dead. You tell a kid you'll wring his neck nowadays, they'd probably think you're going to wring a tune out.
I bet you've never seen a rabbit killed like my mother killed one day.
Exactly.
And that was across here, the back of these fields over here. Well, I suppose before Cleveland was here, and she got a stick and she threw this stick and this rabbit was running and it cut it right across the throat. If you didn't see it, you wouldn't believe it.
Well, see, going back to the days you and I are talking about, Bampton had its own tramp,
Oh yes.
Peggy Jim.
Yeah.
And Peggy Jim used to live in a tin shed right down Buckland Road. And Peggy Jim would survive exactly like Freda saying about her mum. He had a knobbly stick and he'd throw that and kill a rabbit just like that.
And my dad
Incredible.
always carried his catapult.
Dick
They
was
made
very
the
good with the catapult.
yes,
Your Dick was
yeah.
very good with the
Made
catapult.
their own catapult. You had that, special stick and
That's right.
and then the bicycle
yeah,
tubes.
It wasn't nickel elastic. It was stronger than that.
Oh
wasn't
yes,
it, Freda?
yeah. Yes, it was sort of a square, square
right.
elastic, wasn't it?
In
Yeah.
passing just now, you mentioned plantation cottages.
Right.
Can you tell us more about those? Who used to live there? And
Freda knew. I remember Philip Hall, who was related to the Applegates. I remember Philip Hall
Yeah.
living along there.
Yeah.
But Freda could go back probably more people than
yeah,
that.
there's,
The Wickses lived there too.
The
Wickses that
Wickses,
live in
yes,
Bampton,
yes,
they lived there.
yeah. But I can't remember when they were pulled down, Don.
well, they were pulled down.
But they were exactly the same as those two houses that belong to Ham Court now, down on by my Shergold's.
Yeah.
That's right.
They
It
were
was quite a nice
exactly the
day,
same.
wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
That's right.
They
But
were
it was
exactly
brick
the
built
same.
rather than stone built.
And then also there used to be across these fields. Now let me get my bearings right. You go across from the back of the wood yard.
cricket field. Oh, the wood yard.
Yeah, and over there, and then up towards the aerodrome to the railway lines used to come along like that. And there's what is the farm up there? Lower Haddon. There used to be a chapel over there.
Did there really?
Yes, there used to be a chapel over there, and you know, the big doors in the chapel and that. And they used to keep the tractors and that in there then. You know, when we were kids, or farm implements like, you know. But they kept them in there then, and we used to play in there. And the Yanks apparently, because they came down with these bomb things down all the way down there.
Right,
you know where the bomb things are. Then it was there. It's somewhere that.
Yeah.
Between Plantation and you know that way. And this chapel was there. You know, and we used to play in there.
See, when you think about it, Roy, how far Freda and her cronies would have walked as little kids.
And that was gorse fields up there too.
Yes.
In total safety.
Yeah, they were gorse fields. Yeah.
Well, our children used to walk to school from here to the new school when we first came.
Yeah.
Well, Colin, my son, was 9, and Hilary was 6, and they used to walk to school. We didn't take them to school.
That road was never like it is now.
No.
That road is never like it is now. Even since when I was on the post, when did I come off the post? But I used to go round up there, up to Lower Haddon, then back and round Lou, you know, and down Mount Owen.
Yes.
But up that road, you never saw the traffic.
Well, the crazy thing about it, you take Busby. What was the Busby's at the farm?
Billy and
Bill.
Billy and Sydney.
Bill and Sid.
Have you read my book? It's all in there.
Yeah, I've done it. Yeah.
I pulled Freda's leg because even though she was a post lady, she never in her book mentioned Cleveland.
No, I didn't.
Never mentioned.
Never mentioned Cleveland. Do you know? Honestly, sitting back now, I used to think, what can I write about? You know, what can I try and think? And you couldn't think. And I've thought of so many things that would be of interest now.
Yeah.
I mean, even to the like I said to you the other day, the milestone.
Yeah.
You know, up by the buildings.
Of buildings.
Yeah, but 72 miles to London, and you know.
Oh, it was one that.
Stone it was, and something crashed into it and
I think
broke
it was
it off.
Modern Hedges, I think.
It broke it off, didn't they? Yes,
That's right. But going back to the Busbys, you see, they had this farm down by the church there, and he would walk his cows up round by the church, across this road that we're talking about. They're so busy now. But his cows was older than him. You heard about the cow with the crumpled horn. The horns on these cows were all twisted and turned, and they were 2 foot long at least, weren't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely unbelievable. And these old cows, they'd walk up New Road, down New Inn Lane, onto the main road again, down Buckland Road, and the old gent had walked so slow, and the cows couldn't walk any quicker anyway. And they would dawdle all the way down. And there's some fields down there because we bought them. Dad actually bought Busby's farm and the piece of land at the back there. At one stage, we owned that. And these Busby fields, as we used to call them, right down one of the lanes down Buck Road. A hell of a journey. So he would take his time walking these cows down. And there's a lovely big wide grass furze down Buck Road, and the cows would eat on it.
Yeah, but
by the time they got down to his fields, the cows would be ready for sleep. So they never did graze his fields. They kept the sides of the road nice and short because that's where they would do their. Then he'd walk them all the way back up again. And on one occasion, because we had the dump field, which is where Pocot's Close is now, our cows come out as his come along, and then there was an almighty bunch up between the 2 herds of cows.
Yeah, because yours used to just go across the farm,
right.
Didn't they? Yeah, remember that. But going back to Bushy Row, there was a big ditch all along there, you know, all the way down, wasn't it, Don?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was a deep ditch, you know. And
well, the dump field was so much lower than the road
dump field
anyway.
was low, yeah, you had banks, didn't you? Yeah.
See, that was a hell of a playground because in the winter it would flood and you'd have snow and ice, I should say, on top of the water. But there would be bikes and hence it was called the dump field.
Yeah, everything was chucked in there.
Bikes and all sorts down in there.
But these banks, you see, we used to go on them. You know, we had one time we had small bikes, you know, bikes and no saddle on them and nothing. You see, and they put a sack over there where the saddle used to be. You know, sat on these bikes and come down these down these banks. And then one time they they built a swing, and it was the old iron bedstead, and then they'd got wires, the clothes wire, you know, what for the clotheslines, these wires, between two willow trees.
It was full of withy trees. It was full of withy trees in there.
Yeah, it was all withy trees. And between these two trees, they would hitch this up. You'd got this flat thing, and half a dozen kids would sit on there, you know, swing.
Because you made your own fun.
Yeah.
Can we place this exactly? Bushy Rose and the
What you call Bushy
Pocock's.
Road,
Yeah.
all right, was still a new road in those days, right?
Yeah.
But that road would go down to the New Inn, which you know is the Morris Clown.
Yes.
It was called the New Inn.
Yes.
So as you go from New Road down what you now call Bushy Road into to the Morris Clown,
Yeah.
on the left-hand side, once you got where Freda was born, her was first living in Bampton in that area. That hers was the end council house. Then where they've developed all those houses, which you know is Pocock's Close,
yes.
that was much
Very
lower.
low.
It was ever so low, and it would flood.
I was just trying to place where you meant by the low.
And then when you come out of what you would know as Lavender Place Flats, which was where our farm was, you would go straight into the dump fields, as we call it. But there was a footpath that was made by people walking it rather than saying this is a definite footpath, and it would go between Ted Hunt's garden and Granny Radburn's garden.
And down towards the beam.
No,
would go
because
back
you're
out.
going across now, you go between these two council houses,
From
which would
Fox
bring you
Close.
straight into Fox Close.
Ah, I see.
Right?
Yes, I get you.
But it was a thing that people sort of did, but they had no right to do. And they would go through, was it Mrs. Radburn's or was it Ted Hunt's gate?
Ted Hunt's, they'd go through
gate.
Ted Hunt's.
They
wouldn't
would go through his gate, alongside of his house, and out into the front, and that was a shortcut to our council houses. But Granny Radburn would go at the wall, and Ted Hunt, Mrs. Hunt more than Ted. Ted was quite
She was
easy.
Australian.
Yeah. Yeah, it caused a lot of problems. But that was the way we went,
Yes,
wasn't
it was. Yes, you just did it, didn't you?
Because talk about it.
They were quiet for 5
Talking
minutes,
about the dump field, they also I don't know who would have done it, whether it was the RAF or what, but they built an ATC hut
Oh yes, yeah.
in the dump
Yeah.
field, didn't they? In the corner of the dump field.
Yeah.
And that's where the last Battle of Bampton was. Because I'm talking here about 1951, 52, that all Bampton kids in the dump field, just before bonfire night, they would get rubbish, all Bampton kids, from right down here, because Albert Radburn was a good little worker, and they would get all the bits of wood and tyres and all sorts, they would get and dump in this dump field. An enormous bonfire ready for bonfire night. And all the mums and dads would help get the fire going and see to safety.
Yeah.
Nobody would ask them to. There's no committee with a chairperson.
Oh, no.
Nothing like that at all. It was all done voluntary.
Yeah.
Community.
Yeah, it was a committee. But do you know what? Somebody set light to the bloody fire before bonfire night. And the ATC got the blame.
Yeah.
And all the gangs of kids, we got there with apples and sticks and rocks. And when the ATC had got inside their hut, then we I'm putting myself in, I should be sued for this. But we then sort of bombarded the ATC at night. These kids come to see what was on the go, so these apples and that was being thrown at them. And it was a hell of a battle there,
But
because they set fire too soon.
At a later date, the ATC hut was moved into Culpit Lane, wasn't it?
That's right,
When we
it was.
first came
Yeah,
there, yes.
yeah.
Just by Altree
Yeah.
Farm,
Yeah.
Doug's
Yeah.
place. Yes. Well, I think we've got about 5 minutes to go. Would you like to wrap up, the two of you, unless you'd like to go on for another half hour?
Well, Freda did say just now, I'll try and do it very quickly, Freda did say just now about Jack Morton writing in the Beam, and he writes about my father. Sometimes he remembered my father, but he didn't remember us, and he remembered that my father would either appear from New Inn Lane, or he would appear from Lavender Square on his bike with his old milk can rattling on the bike. Well, there's an answer to why Dad would appear from different directions, and that was because Dad never ever had proper lights on his bike. He had an old home guard knapsack, and in the knapsack he put an electric fencer battery from off the farm, 2 wires to an old car headlamp which he'd hold in one hand. Well, that was ideal for finding the cows first thing in the morning. He'd pan around, and of course this, but it was totally illegal. But do you remember, we had a policeman during the war known as Hutchins.
Yes, whispering grass.
Whispering in the grass, because he had a little squeaky voice, didn't he? Well, he was strict and we were frightened of him.
Yeah.
But when Richard, but he was a wartime policeman, he was only about 5'1".
Yeah, he
wasn't he? He was only a little
tall.
man. Then Richard's come along. And Richard's first night on duty, he booked 50 people in Bampton for inappropriate lights. And I think it was 47 the next night he booked. So my dad was absolutely scared of him. And so he would take different ways to see that he didn't get caught. But basically, he got caught once.
Yeah.
And the copper said, "Hey," he said, "stop." My dad said, "I can't stop, I'm 10 minutes late already." It was 4:10 in the morning. And he followed Dad all the way round into Dad's farm. And when they got there, he said to Dad, he said, to be quite honest, Fred, he said, "Have you got any chicken corn for my chicken?" And Dad said, of course, yeah, I can get you some. So it wasn't bribery and corruption. It was a matter of he wanted corn, Dad wanted to carry on with his milk and not have to go to court for no lights. And the two things were satisfying.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's just right to the end. Thank you both very much indeed.
Our pleasure.
Wonderful. That's a 3/4 of an hour, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you very
We'll come
much.
again.